Have you ever wondered if the way you're having sex at your age might actually be harming your body? It's a question many avoid, but one that becomes more important as we grow older. What if some of the things you thought were harmless are quietly putting your health and your relationship at risk? Here's another thought. Intimacy isn't supposed to fade with age, but the truth is, the habits that once worked in your 40s or 50s may not serve you well in your 60s and 70s. Could it be that what used to bring you closer might now be slowly creating distance? And finally, imagine this. Sex and closeness in later life can be one of the most powerful sources of joy, but only if you know what to avoid and what to embrace. The real danger lies not in aging itself, but in holding on to outdated patterns that no longer fit your body or your partner's needs. This might feel like a difficult conversation, but if you're over 65 and still sexually active, it's time we bring these truths into the open. Sex is not harmful simply because you're older. But many seniors don't realize that certain routines can slowly damage their health or weaken the bond with their partner. The reality is, physical closeness can remain one of the most beautiful aspects of aging, but only when approached with awareness, honesty, and habits that reflect the body's natural changes. Our hearts shift, our hormones adjust, and our needs evolve. What felt effortless in midlife may require more thought, care, and adaptation now. And if you're still relying on silent assumptions or habits from decades ago, it can result in more harm than connection. In this video, we're going to uncover 7 common things older adults should stop doing right now when it comes to sex and intimacy. Whether you're in a long-term marriage, entering a new relationship later in life, or simply trying to feel more at ease in your own body, these insights will help you protect your health, nurture closeness, and build confidence in ways that truly honor this stage of life. Stick with me until the end, because understanding these 7 habits might not only save you from physical discomfort or emotional distance, they could also help you rediscover something joyful, something deeply human, that far too many people let slip away too soon. Let's begin with the first mistake: neglecting cardiovascular health. One of the biggest misconceptions older adults make when it comes to intimacy is believing it's all about hormones, desire, or mood. While those factors matter, the truth is that in your later years, your heart health sits at the very center of everything, including your sexual health. Yet for many people, it's ignored until a serious scare forces them to pay attention. I once met Harold, a man of 76, who still had a strong desire for closeness. Mentally, he was sharp. Emotionally, he was present. He and his wife of nearly 50 years shared a loving bond that most people would envy. But something was off. Harold noticed he didn't feel as strong anymore. He would get winded doing things that once felt effortless. And although the desire was still there, his body didn't respond the way it used to. Like so many others, he brushed it off as just getting older. But the truth ran deeper. His circulation had been declining for years, silently, without drawing much attention, until it began affecting his intimacy. What most people don't realize is that good circulation is essential for sexual health. It impacts everything: blood flow, stamina, responsiveness, even confidence in the moment. When the arteries begin to narrow and the heart has to push harder to move blood through stiffened vessels, every system feels the strain. And this decline doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, disguised by excuses like, "I'm just a little tired today," or "maybe I'm not in the mood." But those small excuses can actually be the body's early warnings. Harold only discovered the truth during a routine physical. His doctor told him his blood pressure had been high for years, something he never noticed because there were no obvious symptoms, no pain, no sudden collapse, just subtle changes in energy and performance that crept in until intimacy itself became uncomfortable. His doctor explained that the same system responsible for keeping his heart strong was also the one influencing his energy, his arousal, and even his ability to fully enjoy intimacy. Once Harold began addressing the issue, by walking more often, improving his diet, and staying consistent with his medication, he noticed a real shift. And the change wasn't just physical. He felt more confident, more present, more connected to himself and his partner. What many people don't realize is that intimacy problems are often one of the earliest warning signs of cardiovascular trouble. They're not something to laugh off or blame only on age. They are the body's way of saying, "Pay attention before this gets worse." This isn't only true for men. Women experience it as well, though the signs can look different. Reduced circulation, hormonal shifts, and cardiovascular strain can show up as dryness, discomfort, or even a sudden lack of interest. What feels like an emotional issue may actually be your heart quietly asking for help. That's why regular checkups matter. If you haven't had your blood pressure measured lately, or if you've been avoiding a cholesterol panel, now is the time. Not because something is already broken, but because what you're protecting is valuable. It's about preserving energy, confidence, and connection before things slip away. Harold didn't overhaul his entire life. He didn't go vegan, run marathons, or chase extreme routines. Instead, he made simple, sustainable changes. He started walking after dinner. He swapped processed snacks for fruit and nuts. He showed up to his doctor's appointments. And 6 months later, not only was his physical strength improving, but his confidence had returned. And so had the closeness in his marriage. If you're in your senior years and still sexually active, or even hoping to be, remember this: your heart health is the foundation. It's not just about living longer, it's about living better. It's about keeping the strength to enjoy the moments that make life rich, personal, and deeply fulfilling. While the bedroom may feel like a space ruled by emotions and hormones, at this stage of life, it begins with your heart. Number 2, relying on over-the-counter supplements without guidance. I can't tell you how often I hear from people who've tried the latest pill they saw online, a bottle they picked up from the pharmacy shelf, or something a friend swore by. These supplements almost always make the same promises: boosted stamina, endless energy, or a return to the vitality they remember from their 30s. And honestly, I understand the appeal. When your body starts slowing down, when responsiveness isn't what it used to be, the temptation to reach for something quick and easy feels almost irresistible. But here's the problem. Many of these over-the-counter boosters, especially the ones marketed for sexual performance, can quietly cause more harm than good. Take Roger, for example. At 69, he ordered a so-called natural vitality booster he found online. The label was covered in bold claims: testosterone support, nitric oxide blend, endurance formula. It sounded scientific, it looked trustworthy, and he believed it might help. For the first few weeks, he thought he noticed a difference, maybe a little extra energy, maybe more drive. But soon, the side effects started creeping in. Headaches became frequent. His blood pressure began to spike. Anxiety came out of nowhere. He had trouble sleeping, and then one afternoon, he fainted while climbing the stairs. Roger later discovered the supplement he trusted was interfering with his prescribed blood pressure medication. No one warned him because there was no one to ask. The product wasn't regulated, and the herbal ingredients, mixed with chemical compounds, acted more like hidden stimulants than natural support. And yes, in tiny print, the label said, "Consult your physician." But let's be honest, how many people do that when they're picking up something at a gas station counter or ordering from a flashy online ad? At this stage of life, your body is more sensitive than ever to imbalance. Your liver processes slower, your kidneys have to work harder, and if you're already on medications, those doses are carefully measured to keep you safe. Throwing in an unregulated supplement can undo years of careful medical management without you even realizing it. So before you put your trust in a bottle of promises, ask yourself, am I helping my body or gambling with it? Adding unregulated supplements on top of your prescribed medications, without knowing exactly what's inside them or how they might interact, can throw your entire system off balance. This is especially true with supplements marketed for sexual performance. Many contain substances that raise blood pressure, thin the blood, or speed up the heart rate. For someone already managing high blood pressure or atrial fibrillation, that combination can be dangerous and even raise the risk of stroke. What's worse, Some products secretly contain prescription drugs that never appear on the label. Others are packed with a cocktail of herbs that, when mixed together, don't boost vitality. They magnify side effects. That's what happened to Roger. Once he stopped taking the unregulated supplement and worked with his doctor instead, everything began to improve. His blood pressure stabilized, his anxiety lifted, and with proper medical guidance, he found safer and smarter ways to support his vitality through strength training, quality sleep, and a few simple changes in his diet. These weren't flashy shortcuts. They weren't risky experiments. They were steady, sustainable habits that worked with his body rather than against it. That's the lesson here. If you're thinking about trying a supplement, or if you already have one sitting in your cabinet, pause before taking another pill. Bring the bottle to your doctor. Ask questions. Get clear on what's in it, how it could interact with your prescriptions, and whether it's even necessary. There's absolutely no shame in wanting to feel strong, confident, and connected. But the truth is, as we age, shortcuts often come with bigger risks. The body may be wiser, but it's also more delicate. And the goal isn't simply to function, it's to thrive, to live fully, in a way that's safe, balanced, and rooted in truth rather than advertising. Roger didn't stop being intimate. What he stopped was gambling with his health. And that shift gave him far more than physical performance. It gave him peace of mind and confidence in his future. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss any of our new videos. Your support helps us continue creating valuable content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Number 3, avoiding honest conversations with your doctor. This is one of the most common and quietest mistakes many older adults make when it comes to intimacy. Not staying silent with their partners, but staying silent with their doctors. And honestly, it's easy to see why. For those of us raised in a different time, the idea of discussing sex with a healthcare provider can feel deeply uncomfortable. It seems too private, even a little embarrassing. Many assume the doctor will brush it off as unimportant, or worse, that nothing can really be done about it anyway. But the truth is, staying silent often causes far more harm than the problem itself. I remember a woman named Carol, 73, who confided that she and her husband, George, had slowly grown distant. Not because they didn't care about each other, but because intimacy had become uncomfortable for both of them. Carol experienced pain she didn't want to admit, while George struggled with arousal but kept it to himself. Each blamed it on something different. Carol thought it was just menopause. George assumed it was simply age. Together, they concluded that a fading sex life was inevitable, something they just had to accept. But here's what struck me most. Carol was the kind of woman who stayed on top of her health. She went for regular checkups, managed her arthritis carefully, kept her cholesterol under control, and followed her doctor's advice in almost every other area of life. Yet in all those visits, not once did she mention the discomfort she felt during intimacy, and George, who often tagged along to her appointments, never once spoke up about his struggles either. It just didn't seem like the right subject to bring up in the exam room. Then, almost by accident, Carol finally mentioned her pain during a routine checkup. She expected awkwardness. She expected dismissal. But her doctor didn't flinch. She wasn't surprised. And she wasn't uncomfortable, because these issues are far more common than most people realize. In fact, her doctor explained that what Carol was going through was one of the most common issues her older patients faced. And more importantly, there were real, practical solutions. Carol began using a non-hormonal treatment that eased her dryness and made intimacy far more comfortable. George was referred for a simple check of his vascular health, and the results revealed a minor blockage restricting blood flow. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to affect him, and thankfully, something that could be addressed. That single conversation shifted everything for them. It didn't just improve the physical side of their relationship, it rebuilt the emotional closeness they thought had been slipping away. Too many older adults assume sexual health is no longer something their doctor should address, But that couldn't be further from the truth. Sexual well-being isn't just about pleasure. It's about quality of life, independence, and in many cases, it's a window into larger health concerns. Erectile dysfunction, vaginal dryness, or a decline in libido can all be early red flags for deeper conditions like heart disease, diabetes, or hormone imbalances. And here's the hard truth. Ignoring these signals doesn't make them vanish. It simply delays the help you could have had sooner. If you're meeting with a new doctor and you feel uncomfortable bringing it up, start with something simple and direct. Can I ask you a question about intimacy? Or, I've noticed some changes and I'd like to talk about them. That one sentence can open the door to solutions you didn't know were available. You're not the first patient to ask, and you certainly won't be the last. In fact, many physicians welcome these conversations because they know how closely intimacy ties into both physical and emotional well-being. Talking openly doesn't just lead to better function, it often restores confidence, strengthens relationships, and reassures you that what you're experiencing is normal and treatable. That sense of relief alone is powerful. Another important piece many people overlook is the role of medication. Countless prescriptions come with side effects that quietly interfere with sexual health: blood pressure pills, antidepressants, even certain over-the-counter drugs. If you never speak up, your doctor may not realize those side effects are affecting you. And sometimes, all it takes is a small adjustment in dosage or switching to an alternative medication to bring things back into balance. George once told me that after his checkup, the most valuable part of the experience wasn't the prescription or the medical explanation. What mattered most was being seen, having someone truly listen without judgment. That simple act made him feel human again. Not invisible, not too old, but simply a man who still wanted to live fully and with dignity. And that's something every older adult deserves: a healthcare provider who respects their desire to stay healthy in every sense, physically, emotionally, and intimately. And it all begins with a conversation. Don't let embarrassment rob you of healing. Don't let fear convince you that silence is safer. Your health story is yours to tell. And when you share it openly, you may unlock the door to a stronger, more fulfilling chapter of life. Number 4. Overlooking hydration and diet. At first, this might sound far too simple to matter, but what you eat and drink each day directly influences your energy, your circulation, and even your hormones. These 3 pillars quietly shape your experience with intimacy, yet many older adults overlook them. Too often, people focus on age, medication, or mood, while ignoring the basic truth. If your body isn't nourished or hydrated, everything begins to slow down, including desire, responsiveness, and stamina. Take Frank, for example, a 71-year-old who wasn't in terrible shape. He walked his dog every morning, cooked most of his meals at home, and even played golf twice a week. From the outside, he looked like a man doing everything right. But he often felt tired, sluggish, and as he admitted, just not up for anything more than the basics. Like many, he assumed this was simply aging catching up with him, a natural decline he couldn't fight. But at his daughter's urging, Frank met with a nutritionist, and what he discovered shocked him. He had been severely underhydrated for years. On top of that, his diet lacked key nutrients like healthy fats, magnesium, and zinc, which are directly tied to testosterone production, nerve sensitivity, and proper blood flow. Without these, the body struggles to maintain the energy and responsiveness needed, not only for intimacy, but for everyday vitality. Even mild dehydration reduces blood volume, forcing the heart to work harder just to circulate oxygen and nutrients. And when your body is running on empty like that, it's no wonder you feel drained, unmotivated, or disconnected. Your skin slowly becomes less elastic, your muscles tighten, and your joints begin to ache. All of this makes even simple movement uncomfortable, and when applied to intimacy, the effects are clear. Reduced sensitivity, slower arousal, less endurance, and an increased risk of cramping or strain. It may not sound romantic, but it's the reality many older adults face. The hopeful truth, however, is that for most seniors, Much of this discomfort is completely avoidable with the right choices. Then comes the hidden role of sugar and processed food. Frank never realized that the frozen dinners he relied on or the store-bought sauces he poured over his meals were packed with sodium, preservatives, and additives. These weren't just harmless conveniences. They were silently raising his blood pressure, causing bloating, and leaving his body heavy with water retention. On the surface, it looked like he was eating normal food, but in reality, it lacked the nutrients his body desperately needed. He felt full, but not truly fueled. When he finally made small, intentional changes, adding leafy greens to his plate, replacing processed meats with simple grilled fish, and sipping water throughout the day instead of only with meals, his energy began to return. It wasn't an overnight miracle, but step by step, he felt more alive, more capable, and more connected to his body. That spark of vitality he thought had disappeared was never gone. It had just been buried under poor habits. There's also the issue of blood sugar swings. Picture starting your morning with toast and jam, a muffin, or even a sweetened yogurt. At first, you feel energized, but within an hour, insulin surges, your blood sugar plummets, and you're left foggy, irritable, and drained. Repeat that cycle a few times a day, and it begins to mimic the feeling of premature aging. The fatigue, the sluggishness, even the emotional ups and downs. It's not just age creeping in, it's instability caused by diet. And this instability does more than sap energy. It disrupts hormones, reduces stamina, and dulls your ability to stay in tune with your own body. For women especially, diet and hydration play an even more sensitive role. Estrogen directly affects tissue elasticity, lubrication, and overall comfort during intimacy. The foods you choose each day can either support this delicate balance or quietly undermine it, leaving you feeling older than your years. Healthy fats like avocado, olive oil, and nuts play a quiet but powerful role in regulating hormones. Hydrating fruits such as watermelon or cucumbers ease dryness and keep tissues supple. Even simple herbs like ginger and cinnamon can boost circulation and energy. None of this requires a flawless or restrictive diet. No one is asking you to give up every treat you enjoy. But the truth is, every small decision builds towards something larger. Think about it. A glass of water in the morning instead of coffee alone, a handful of almonds instead of cookies in the afternoon, or a plate filled with colorful vegetables instead of one dominated by beige, processed foods. These seemingly tiny choices don't just support your heart or your digestion. They create a foundation for vitality, for clarity, and for the kind of confidence that allows you to live fully. Frank discovered this firsthand. After just 2 months of steady hydration and nutrient-rich meals, he wasn't only more active in bed. He became more joyful in everyday conversation, more willing to initiate closeness, and more open to new experiences with his wife. He realized intimacy was no longer an effort to perform. It was simply an extension of his overall well-being. That is the deeper point. It isn't about turning into a health fanatic or denying yourself every indulgence. It's about respecting your body enough to give it what it needs to do what it was designed to do: connect, engage, and feel alive. When you fuel yourself well, intimacy stops being a struggle and starts becoming a natural reflection of the health and energy you've built. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any future videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Number 5. Dismissing emotional connection. In your 30s and 40s, physical attraction can carry much of the weight. Passion often comes easily, driven by hormones, novelty, and the hunger for closeness. But as we age, something else begins to take the lead: emotional connection. And surprisingly, it's one of the first things many older adults neglect when intimacy begins to fade. I once spoke with a couple, Howard and Marlene, married for 38 years. They still loved each other deeply. They still lived together peacefully. They shared meals, errands, family gatherings. But in the bedroom, there was a quiet distance. Not rejection, not conflict, but a kind of absence. When they tried to talk about it, Marlene would simply say she wasn't in the mood. Howard would shrug and accept it as just how things are now. Yet deep down, both of them carried a quiet loneliness. What they didn't realize was that the challenge wasn't with their bodies at all. The real issue was the gap that had slowly formed between their hearts. Years of raising children, juggling health issues, and carrying the weight of retirement worries had crowded out the emotional curiosity they once had for each other. And when that curiosity fades, so does the spark. Without emotional safety, without feeling truly seen and heard, intimacy begins to feel like an obligation instead of an invitation. It shifts from being something joyful to something quietly avoided, even feared. Here's the irony. Emotional connection is actually what makes intimacy easier, not harder, as we grow older. It creates a sense of safety, a reminder that you are wanted for more than just performance. When you feel emotionally close to someone, you naturally let your guard down. You communicate more openly, you laugh more freely, and you are present instead of self-conscious. Isn't that the kind of closeness everyone longs for? That's when real intimacy happens, not just physical contact, but the deeper kind that leaves you feeling cherished and alive. For Howard and Marlene, the turning point came with one small change. They began taking short walks together every evening. No phones, no distractions, just 15 minutes where it was only the two of them. And during those walks, they asked each other questions they hadn't thought to ask in decades. What do you miss most? What excites you now? What do you need more of from me? Those conversations slowly rewove the thread between them. Without trying to fix the bedroom, something there began to shift, too. They touched more often, laughed more easily, and shared a closeness that felt new, even after nearly 4 decades of marriage. Intimacy returned, not because they forced it, but because they nourished the part of their relationship that had been starving for attention. Many older adults believe that intimacy has to look exactly the same as it did in their younger years, or else it isn't worth the effort. But the truth is, what makes closeness meaningful at this stage of life is very different. It's no longer about urgency, fiery sparks, or proving something. It's about trust. It's about emotional safety. It's about that sense of playfulness that grows from truly knowing and appreciating each other on a deeper level. This shift is especially important for those who find themselves dating again later in life. Maybe you've lost a spouse, maybe you've gone through a divorce, or maybe you're exploring a new relationship after decades of being out of practice. In those moments, emotional connection can feel both thrilling and terrifying. You might hesitate, holding back as a way to protect your heart. But here's the truth. Every time you avoid being emotionally present, it becomes harder to create physical closeness that feels real, safe, and deeply satisfying. So ask yourself, when was the last time you really leaned into those deeper questions? When was the last time you asked your partner, what are you most afraid of right now? Or, what has brought you joy lately? Or even, what part of your body feels most alive these days? These aren't just casual questions. They are doorways. When we step through them, we create a kind of intimacy that goes far beyond the physical. We build a foundation of safety and warmth that allows both people to let their guard down, to truly relax, and to feel at home in each other's presence. I'll never forget what Howard once told me after reconnecting with Marlene. He said, "For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to perform. I just felt wanted." And that one shift changed everything for him. That's the quiet, transformative power of emotional connection. It doesn't replace the physical, it enhances it. It makes intimacy easier, more natural, more joyful. Because at this stage of life, intimacy isn't about chasing perfection. It's about rediscovering presence, affection, and the kind of closeness that makes you feel fully alive, even in your 60s, 70s, and beyond. It's not about chasing what looks perfect. It's about what feels real, mutual, and safe. And that always begins with how well your hearts connect long before your bodies do. Number 6, ignoring the role of sleep and recovery. When people think about ways to improve intimacy in their later years, the first things that come to mind are usually medication, better communication, or maybe exercise. But one of the most overlooked and least talked about factors is sleep. And not just a quick nap when you feel drained, but deep, consistent, restorative sleep. The kind of rest that allows your body to repair itself, balance its hormones, and keep your mind alert and responsive throughout the day. You might wonder, what does sleep have to do with intimacy? The truth is, the connection runs deeper than most realize. Poor sleep doesn't just make you yawn more or drag through the day, it throws your whole system off. Testosterone levels drop, stress hormones like cortisol rise, your nervous system becomes more reactive, and your ability to manage emotions weakens. All of this makes intimacy more difficult, not only physically, but emotionally as well. Take Lester, for example. He was 75 and had been married for over 40 years. He and his wife still shared a bed, but his snoring had gotten worse with age. He often woke up 4 or 5 times a night, sometimes without even realizing it. During the day, he felt drained, struggled to focus, and gradually lost interest in intimacy. It wasn't that he didn't care about his wife, it was that his body was stuck in survival mode, too exhausted to think about closeness. When his doctor suggested a sleep study, Lester resisted at first. He thought it was unnecessary, maybe even a little dramatic. But eventually he agreed. The results revealed something he never expected: moderate sleep apnea. His breathing was pausing dozens of times every single hour, robbing his body and brain of oxygen. Once he started using a CPAP machine, the change was remarkable. His energy returned, his mood lifted, and his interest in intimacy naturally came back. Not because he forced it, but because his body was finally getting the recovery it had been begging for all along. It didn't happen overnight, but within just a few weeks, Lester's energy began to return. He woke up feeling alert instead of groggy. His memory sharpened, his mood lifted, and he found himself walking more, laughing more, and initiating connection with his wife again. And yes, his intimacy improved, not because of a pill, not because of a procedure, but because his body was finally getting the deep recovery it had been craving. Sometimes it's not about adding more, but about restoring what was always meant to be there. Sleep, in truth, is one of the hidden pillars of healthy aging. It regulates blood pressure, protects heart health, balances mood, and restores critical hormone levels. For women, especially after menopause, poor sleep can intensify hot flashes, mood swings, irritability, and even vaginal dryness. For men, disrupted sleep often lowers testosterone, diminishes libido, and reduces stamina. These aren't just nuisances. They are signs, whispers from the body, that something deeper needs attention. Think about it. Have you been waking up tired, no matter how many hours you spend in bed? Has your partner mentioned loud snoring, pauses in your breathing, or restless tossing at night? These aren't little annoyances to brush off. They are clues, small red flags your body is raising. Often, the culprit is habits we overlook: falling asleep in front of the television, sipping coffee or tea too late in the afternoon, or relying on alcohol at night to unwind. At first, they seem harmless. But over time, they chip away at the quality of your rest, night after night. The result? Dipping energy, hormonal imbalances, sluggish mornings, and a slow erosion of your ability to feel fully engaged, whether in your daily activities or with your partner. Other times, the problem goes deeper. Chronic pain, lingering anxiety, or medications that interfere with natural sleep cycles can rob you of rest in ways you may not immediately connect. If that's the case, don't resign yourself to poor sleep as just part of aging. Talk to your doctor. Small adjustments, like shifting your bedtime routine, using short-term aids, or addressing conditions like restless leg syndrome or sleep apnea, can make a dramatic difference. Because here's the truth: you deserve restful, restorative sleep, not just so you can feel awake during the day, but so you can show up fully in your relationships, your health, and your joy. Good sleep sharpens your mind, brightens your mood, and keeps you connected, not just with others, but with yourself. Lester said that after months of truly restful sleep, he didn't just feel younger, he felt alive again. His energy returned, his confidence resurfaced, and he no longer dreaded intimacy or questioned whether his body would cooperate. Instead, he trusted himself, and that trust changed everything. It wasn't about becoming who he once was. It was about reclaiming the freedom to live fully in the present. And that simple shift gave him back not only his closeness with his wife, but also a renewed sense of joy in daily life. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Your support helps us keep creating content that informs, inspires, and encourages you to live well. Now, let's move forward. Number 7. Expecting intimacy to look the same as it did decades ago. One of the most silent barriers to connection later in life is the belief that intimacy should feel exactly the way it did 30 or 40 years ago. Many carry the assumption that it must follow the same rhythm, come with the same urgency, or spark the same kind of physical response as in their younger years. And when it doesn't, some people quietly conclude that something has been lost, that they've failed, or that maybe the best part of their life is already behind them. But that couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, intimacy after 65, when rooted in tenderness, patience, and genuine presence, often goes deeper than anything hurried or performance-driven from youth. What changes is not your worth, not your capacity to love or to be loved. It's simply the shape of connection itself. And if you allow that shape to evolve, you open the door to a kind of closeness that is richer, steadier, and more meaningful than ever before. I once spoke with a woman named Evelyn, 68, who had recently begun dating again after years of being widowed. She admitted feeling awkward during her first few experiences. Her body had changed. She wasn't as flexible, her skin didn't respond the way it used to, and she worried that her partner might see those changes as flaws. She kept comparing herself to the woman she once was, and each time, she felt a wave of disappointment. Her body had changed, her energy wasn't the same, and she worried that this meant her days of passion were behind her. But then something remarkable happened. One evening, while sitting quietly with her partner, she finally opened up. She said, "I'm not who I used to be, but I'm still me. I just need you to go slower." In that moment, the pressure melted away. They laughed together, they lingered in each other's arms, and they discovered a gentler rhythm. What they found wasn't a return to the past. It was a new version of closeness, and it felt just as real, just as meaningful. Too many people over 65 believe that if intimacy doesn't follow the old script, if it doesn't involve penetration or doesn't look like it used to, then it somehow doesn't count. But that's a myth. In truth, intimacy is so much bigger. Touch, shared laughter, holding hands, long eye contact, quiet conversation in bed, or exploring each other with patience. These are all powerful, valid forms of connection. They awaken emotion, release hormones, spark joy, and create warmth that is deeply human. When you allow your definition of intimacy to grow, your experience of love expands with it. And yes, it's okay to grieve what has changed. To miss the simplicity, the speed, or the natural flow of what once came so easily. But grieving isn't the same as losing. Change does not erase what's possible. It simply reshapes it. What you have now is a chance to connect in ways that are unhurried, intentional, and emotionally rich. This stage of life doesn't demand performance. It invites presence. And presence often leads to something far deeper than performance ever did. This shift in perspective can be especially freeing for men, who are so often told that their worth is tied to function. When things don't work exactly as they once did, shame can creep in quickly. But intimacy was never about being flawless. It has always been about showing up with honesty, with openness, and with the willingness to give whatever your body and heart can offer that day. That openness is what makes a partner feel truly desired, safe, and close. For couples who have shared decades together, reigniting intimacy doesn't come from clinging to what once was. It comes from releasing old expectations and daring to create new ones, together. Try holding each other without any agenda, without pressure, without expectation. Simply let the closeness itself be enough. Talk openly about what feels good now, not just what worked years ago. Let your imagination shape the moment, instead of clinging to memory alone. And if you're entering a new relationship later in life, honesty is your greatest strength. There is beauty in saying, "This is where my body is today, but I still want connection." That kind of vulnerability isn't weakness, it's magnetic. It builds trust, it clears away fear, and it creates space for both partners to show up as their authentic selves. Over and over, the most joyful moments I've heard from older adults don't come from trying to replicate youth. They come from discovering that love is still alive in their skin, in their voice, in the way they hold hands or share laughter. Closeness is still possible, and in many ways, it can be even more satisfying now because it's no longer tied to performance or pressure. It becomes about presence. When you release the need to chase what intimacy used to be, you allow yourself the freedom to explore what it can be now. And often, that version is richer, deeper, and more fulfilling than anything that came before. As we bring this video to a close, take a quiet moment to reflect on what you've just heard. Which part stayed with you? Was it the reminder to stop comparing yourself to who you once were? Was it the realization that nourishment, rest, and emotional presence matter just as much, if not more, than physical mechanics? If you are in your senior years and still experiencing desire, curiosity, and a longing for closeness, know this: you are not alone. And more importantly, you are not broken. You are human, still capable of love, still capable of intimacy, and still capable of joy. What you are feeling is completely natural, and honoring that part of yourself can open doors to connection, healing, and joy that many people wrongly assume are gone after a certain age. Intimacy after 65 doesn't need to look perfect or follow a script. It needs to be real, honest, patient, and sometimes just a little bit brave. Whether you're in a long-term relationship that has weathered decades or stepping into a new chapter of connection, remember this: your capacity for closeness doesn't vanish with age. It simply asks for a different kind of care. The small choices you make each day, getting restful sleep, drinking enough water, having that honest conversation with your partner, letting go of unrealistic expectations, these are not minor details. They are the very habits that keep intimacy alive, that keep you feeling vibrant, and that remind you of who you really are. Think about it. Isn't it the little, consistent steps that shape the biggest changes in our lives? If even one of these 7 points resonated with you today, hold on to it. Not as pressure, but as permission. Permission to age with dignity and grace. Permission to love with openness and courage. Permission to believe that intimacy, in all its forms, still belongs to you no matter your age. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing that stood out to you and how you plan to apply it in your own life. Your experiences and reflections matter, and they inspire not just us, but everyone who listens. Reading your thoughts gives us motivation and encouragement to keep creating meaningful content. If you enjoyed this video and found it valuable, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with others. Your support helps us continue to bring you thoughtful and inspiring messages that truly make a difference. Wishing you health, happiness, and peace always. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss what's coming next.